Hi, everybody. So welcome and thank you for being with us. I am Joyce Rojas, Money Mindset Mentor, and I am here with Dawn McGee, and she is a health evangelist. So I want to actually have you, Dawn, explain a little bit about what you do, and then we'll go into what we're about to talk about.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me on, Joyce. I really appreciate it. So I think when people think about an evangelist, right, they think about it's someone who talks about how good something is and then tries to persuade you to come over to their way of thinking. So when I talk about nutrition and health and food and how important it is as an evangelist, I want you to know that it is so important to take good care of your health and how important that is for you. I generally work with women who want results that last a lifetime, not just a moment in time, because our health is so important to us.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And today what we're going to be talking about is stress. So reducing stress.
Yeah.
And we are each going to share 3 tips. You're going to share some tips on health, and I am going to share some tips on the wealth side. But just to put it in perspective, what's going on with everything with COVID, right? It actually came and just shocked us because there was this feeling of like, holy shit, am I going to die? So, and are my loved ones going to die? And what's going to happen to me? And am I going to get sick? And all of these things started going through our heads. But not only that happened, then the market went down almost 35%. And so we started to see our 401ks go down, our money go down, lose some jobs, our businesses close. And so then it impacted our wealth. So there's probably a lot of stress out there right now. And we want to talk about just some tips on how to reduce stress. So Dawn, do you want to be the first one to go? And we'll just get right into it. Give me one of your best tips.
So before I jump right into one of my best tips, I want to talk a little bit about stress and the impact it has. I think everybody understands that they want to reduce their stress, right? We don't enjoy being stressed. And why is that? And what's the impact on your body? Well, when you're stressed, your adrenal system goes into overdrive and your system produces more cortisol. And without going into, a ton of science here, what that means is that it's going to be a lot harder for you to reach your health goals. And it's going to put your body into a state of inflammation. None of that's good. So we want to talk about how to pull back from that situation. And the number one thing that I'm going to talk about is a good night's sleep. You're like, but wait a minute, Dawn, if I'm stressed, I can't sleep. That's a complete contradiction in terms, right?
Right.
But getting a good night's sleep is the best thing you can do to get your body back into a better balance, a sustainable balance. And there are a couple of things you can do about that. One is meditation. I have become a huge fan of Peloton during this whole quarantine phase.
Okay, so maybe I've been living under a rock. What the heck is Peloton?
A Peloton is a spin bike.
Okay.
And people think of it as this high intensity exercise, which of course the biking can be, but they've got this wonderful set of digital programs as well. And one of them is meditation. Also, They offer yoga and stretching. So, and there are tons of other apps for meditation as well as Headspace. There's Calm. So key into something where you can relax and get into a space where you're not thinking about anything but going to sleep at bedtime. Keep the lights down, keep the screens away. Don't eat a lot, don't drink a lot of alcohol, just get ready for sleep and off you go. I would say that is the number one thing you can do, because then you can think clearly. And then
now,
you can
I know
everything.
And that's a good thing that you mentioned the screens, because the screens, I've read that at least 1 hour from when you're sleeping. You should be staying away from any type of screens. And I know that I tell my son that, he's a teenager, and he'll be like, yeah, but I have it on like the low light mode. And so it doesn't matter because it's still blue light. And so I know some people have, I don't know what they call it, some screen thing that they put on their computers to kind of block the blue light, but still your mind is seeing this, your brain is seeing this, and it's thinking you need to work, you need to do something, right?
Right. Right. And I have a 15-year-old as well. And so where we've compromised, and we're all about compromise these days, is no games before bedtime, right? If he
Got
wants to
you.
read on his tablet, great.
Mhm.
No, we'll compromise there, but it's got to be something that's getting ready for bed, right? So
Yeah.
that's the number one thing that I would say to reduce stress. How about
Cool.
you? What's your first tip for
My
everybody?
tip for wealth. So I am going to go with, you know what, to look at this time to redesign yourself. I think that a lot of us are stressed out, especially if you're an entrepreneur, or if you lost your job, or if you think that, hey, you know what, your career may come to an end because your company is downsizing. Look at this time to redesign yourself. And it's so funny because I want to actually share a recent story. I had someone come to me and say, hey, you know what, my company could be laying off and I could be one of the people that are laid off. And so I actually have an option to take a package or not to take a package. And so I really don't know. I'm really scared. I want to stay. And so I asked him, I said, well, you know what? I mean, looking at how you're set up wealth wise, you're fine. Like if you wanted to take the next 5 years to just be you, you could. And so I asked him, I'm like, what have you wanted to do? Like, let's say if you had the ability to take a long vacation, what have you wanted to do? So he said, you know, I really wanted to live in Hawaii. I want to like
Wow.
visit and be able to kind of just stay there for a month or two. And I said, well, this is your chance. This is life giving you the chance to redesign yourself. And so if we begin looking at what's happening with this recession, what's happening with our businesses, and we look at it as a way of redesigning ourselves because it is the next stage of our life, then it completely shifts the perspective of, oh, this is a bad thing, to, holy shit, this is an amazing thing because I get to redesign my life right now. Meanwhile, so many people are stuck in jobs that they don't like because they're afraid to leave that
Right.
position.
I love that. I think this has been a great opportunity for us to slow down a little bit. And if going to Hawaii for 2 months is part of slowing down, then I wholeheartedly support that.
Right? Exactly. So that is my first tip. Give me your second tip, Dawn. But you know what? Before you go into it, I want to ask whoever's viewing, you know, what do you do how do you handle stress? You know, so ask yourself that because this is what this is about, right? Sometimes we handle stress in ways that are not good for us. And a
Mm.
perfect example with me, I know how I handle stress. I handle stress by eating and I handle stress with anger. Those are my two go-to things. So ask yourself, what is your go-to thing when you are under stress? Dawn, what's yours?
So I'm going to turn the question on you for another second because so
Yeah,
those are your not so healthy ways of dealing with stress.
right.
What are your healthy ways of dealing with stress?
Oh, that's a great question. I was actually stressed today earlier and I just left and started just doing a workout outside. It really just, it kind of gets all of that stuff out. So that's one very big way that's healthy. The other thing is venting, you
Mm.
know, and too bad for the other person on the other side of the phone, but, but getting it all out and my feelings out actually helps.
That's so true, and I share a lot of those with you. When I get stressed, some of my negative reactions are also to be like a quick no. No, we can't do that. No, I don't want to do that. To come back to not being flexible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a much more positive way to do that is to talk it through and to get somebody who's maybe impartial or just completely an outside person and vent or talk about it, because sometimes processing it in your head is so hard, and processing it out loud is a lot easier. And I am also, I used to be a runner. I'm not a runner anymore, but I'm absolutely a workout person for if I've got stress, preferably
Awesome.
outside as well.
Yeah. It
Absolutely.
always helps for
Yeah.
some reason.
Yeah.
Awesome. So,
Yeah.
so what's your step two?
So my step two. So when I talk with people, I talk about our triangle of health: eat,
Mhm.
move, and recharge. And people wonder, a triangle, why is that? Well, I'll geek out for a second and I'll tell you that the triangle is important as a shape because it's a super, super strong shape, and we want our health to be super strong. But it's only as strong as its weakest leg. If you think of a triangle, if one of those legs is not strong, then the whole thing starts to collapse,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, in the triangle of eat, move, and recharge, they're all equally important. So my second tip for reducing stress is actually hydration and drinking plenty of water. And
Mm.
and that relates back to all three legs of the triangle, because sometimes when you're hungry, when you think you're hungry, you're actually thirsty. So drink some water and see what happens. And sometimes when you're tired and you feel like you need to recharge, you're actually thirsty. And for movement, hydration is so helpful because it keeps your skin healthy, it keeps your muscles healthy, and it keeps your brain clear. So hydration is like this little magic thing that people forget, especially when maybe we're sitting at a desk for a long period of time, like we are these days. We're doing a lot of Zoom meetings, right? And you forget. So I like to have a water bottle with me all the time, and fill it up regularly, and make sure I'm staying hydrated.
So that's good. And let me ask you a question. Let's talk about pee for a sec. So I have heard that if your pee is not like a very light color yellow, then you're most likely dehydrated. You're not drinking enough water. Is that true?
That is most likely true. Supplements or medications you take can impact that. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have to know about that. But generally speaking, light yellow is the color you're going for, and make sure you're hydrated. And,
Yeah.
frequency, everybody differs. If I'm well hydrated, I'm probably going every hour and a half to 2 hours.
And now coffee is not hydration.
um, correct. Coffee
Neither
is
is
not
soda.
hydration. Neither is soda. Neither is alcohol. And why is that? It's because those are all diuretics, which means that they release the water from your body. So instead of putting the water into your cells and keeping you hydrated, it's removing the water and flushing it out of your body, which
Mm,
leads to dehydration instead of hydration,
exactly. Opposite of
unfortunately.
what we want. So
Absolutely.
thank you for
Great
that.
questions. What's your
My
next tip?
my second tip is to let go of, and this is the time to let go of your titles and
Mm,
your this belief system that society has taught us, that our net worth equals our worth. And that is really big with, just what's going on now is people losing their careers, they're losing their title.
yeah.
And that's a big ego thing. It's like, okay, if I am EVP of whatever, this department, am I going to be able to find this same type of title? And so I think that we need to kind of take a step back and understand that all of us are masterpieces in the making, and that at any moment something can be taken away from this reality that we see. I can one day not be a speaker, for whatever. I could lose
Right.
my voice. I mean, I don't know, and then I won't be a speaker, and that will hurt my ego, and I'll have to redesign myself, right? I can lose my net worth, and then what? So I think that that's a big thing. Is my second tip is to define yourself outside of what society has taught us to define ourselves with. define yourself with what your core values are and your core belief systems are, not with everything outside of you. If it's outside of you, then it probably doesn't define you.
I love that. Define yourself by what's inside of you. Are you willing to share with people how you define yourself?
That's a great question. I'm a really big believer that I have a calling, that I'm here to help people just find the beauty, power, and purpose within themselves. And that's pretty much what I follow, you know?
Mm.
And so even that I've had to kind of myself had to question sometimes, like, what if it's not true? What if I'm
Mm.
making that shit up, you know? And and I'm not really here for a purpose. And so that's where it's like it starts getting very gray zone, where it's like, hey, wow, I can define myself any way I want. And I can choose to make that something positive. I can choose to make that something negative. I can choose to something, if something happens outside of my like my inner self, in my outside reality, if something happens, it could define me. Or I can decide it doesn't. And I define myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's fabulous.
So yeah, and thank you for the great question, Dawn.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So third tip.
Third tip, absolutely. So the third thing that you can do, and the truth is, these are not in priority order because they're all so important. The third thing you can do is move every single day, especially at this time, right?
Yeah.
We talked about how we're on Zooms all day and we're going from one thing to the other, but we're not going anywhere because we're just sitting in the same spot all day long, no matter how busy we feel. And I have had to make some changes for how I structure my day, right? Because I have had to put a boundary on the outside of my day and say, here's where I'm stopping. I'm standing up and I'm going out for a walk every single day. And at the beginning in March, I have to tell you, the Boston weather was not so great, but we have a saying, I'm a hiker, and we have a saying, there is no bad weather, there's only insufficient gear. So bundle up or dress a little bit lighter or put your sunscreen on and get out there. And one of the best things that I found through this time, because my kiddo was homeschooling, right, is I dragged him out and we got to spend an hour of time walking and talking through this. It was truly wonderful. So walk every day, grab a friend, and make sure you're getting some fresh air and movement every single day.
That's great. And actually, you put two things together, right? You put movement and then you also have relationships. Yes. So you're actually nurturing that relationship with a friend or with your son while you're moving. And that's a great idea.
That's a good catch. I like to cram in as much as possible.
Absolutely. We got to be efficient as women, right? And moms. Yeah. And so is there anything that you do? Like, do you have like an alarm that goes off, or do you just kind of know, okay, I should probably take a walk now?
I try not to schedule anything past 5:30 in the afternoon, because I try to do the 5:30 to 6:30 or the 5:45 to 6:45 walk every single day. Gotcha. And so I block out that time on my calendar because my time is just as important as any other appointment I will make, right? And so it's super important for me. I will say that I've also blocked out my morning time because I do an indoor workout in the morning. The afternoon is for my head. The indoor morning workout is for my body.
Good for you. So you've made it a priority. Like, there's no excuses. That's an appointment on your calendar and that's it. Nothing else takes that appointment.
Absolutely. And I can come back and do more stuff afterwards, like we're doing tonight. No problems, no issues. I'm fresh. I'm ready to go. And the same in the morning. I get up a little bit earlier, so I have a little bit of workout time, but nothing interrupts that.
Awesome. Awesome. And that's actually one of the things that recently, for the last maybe 2 days or something, I've been just hard at work doing stuff, creating an online program. And then I look at my phone and I'm like, holy crap, it is 9-something PM. And I have not seen like daylight past my window. Like, I have not gone outside. And really, I've noticed such a big difference that when I have days like that, I will get upset faster. I won't have patience with even some of my clients. Like, they're like, okay, I have no patience for this shit right now. And so it does make a huge difference to not only get outside, but just move and be able to let go of some of that stress.
It's amazing. So if you're open for a challenge, I'll challenge you and I'll ask you, what will you do differently next week?
Good question. I think what I'm going to have to do is maybe, either schedule it where I say, okay, like no matter what, I have to do something at this time. Or maybe, which I've done before, is just kind of put an alarm, 1 hour of working, and then I'll have maybe 20 minutes of just doing something else, whether it's walking around the block or doing some, I'm really bad at push-ups, but I'm really good at squats. So
cool.
Just squatting or something. So I've done that before to kind of keep it going.
That's great.
That's what I'll do.
I love it. I can't wait to hear how your week goes next week. I'm sure you'll be so much more alive and productive for taking the time for yourself.
Yeah, it makes a difference in how the energy that I have after I move.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, what's your third tip?
My third tip is going to be numbers. So know your numbers. Your numbers can either work for you or against you. And many of us, sometimes when our numbers don't look good, we try to ignore them, right? And so we do that because we just don't want to face it. It's something that we think that if we leave it in the drawer, we're never going to have to deal with it. But unfortunately, finances doesn't work that way. It's going to seep out of the drawer and you're going to have to face it at some point. So just understand that numbers are your friends. Numbers can work for you or they can work against you. But the thing is that you have to spend time with them. So if right now your numbers are looking good, then that's perfect, because now is the time that you can say, okay, let's make sure that we're ready for anything that happens, anything different that happens in this economy, anything different that happens in my life. I want to make sure I'm ready so I'm not stressed later on.
Right.
So dealing with it now when your numbers look good are perfect. But let's say your numbers don't look good right now and it's already a stressful thing to look at your numbers. Understand that this is just one picture in time, just one little picture in time. And so if you kind of scroll through your phone and look at all these pictures and you look at 2 years ago, you're going to be like, wow, I looked a little different. And it's the same thing that you'll see in your finances. This one picture in time looks different than what it can be a year from now. And it can look different than what you were 2 years from now. And that's all part of the normal part of it. But just spend time with that. And that way you'll know, what do I need to do to change? Do I need to make any changes? But don't ignore it. That's what unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people do that.
Yeah. And I'm smiling because we treat health the same way. If you ignore your health, it'll go away. Right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with your money.
Right. And you're so right. So perfect example for me, 2019 was a big aha moment when it came to my health, because I went under so much stress that my body just started going crazy on me. It was almost like I was going into autoimmune disease. And that was one of the issues that my doctor was like, okay, it looks like it's maybe autoimmune. And so it was just so much stress that I was putting on my body. And it actually made me realize, holy crap, my mind wants to keep going, but my body's saying, you got to stop, girl. This is enough. So, yeah.
Absolutely. You learned a great lesson last year, unfortunately the hard way, but I'm so glad to see you on the other side of it.
Thank you. Thank you. And unfortunately, I think a lot of us learn hard lessons, but it's like on the hard side,
So true. So true.
So if you have anything, any questions that came up from any of your participants, then let me know. But if there's any tips, last minute tips that you want to give, you can go ahead.
Sure. So I'm going to invite everybody to download my free guide to Nutrition Lies, because I think the world today, we talk a lot about fake news, but there's fake news in the nutrition world. So I wrote this guide to breaking down some of the most common nutrition myths. For example, we talked about combating stress tonight, and one of the most common myths is that all you have to do to be healthy is eat well and exercise. But as we talked about tonight, you really have to do some self-care too. You have to sleep well, and you have to hydrate, and you have to take good care of yourself. So that's one of the tips, and I've got 6 others in the guide, and I will put the link in for everybody, so that you can grab that.
Awesome. And then where do they find you, Dawn?
Yeah, find me on Facebook. I am my business page is Dawn McGee, nutrition coach, and I have a free group as well called Never Diet Again, where we've got tips and tricks for the woman who wants to be healthy without making food a full-time job.
Awesome. Well, good. So then they have your website. They have this download that they can get, and we'll include those in the links in the YouTube video as well. But perfect. I want to thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And if there's any questions, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to Dawn, and we will see you soon.
Good night.